guys.
Hey guys, what is going on? Jay Campbell from TRT Revolution and the author of the definitive TRT manual, and we are back for our fourth show, Adventures in Consciousness, and we have a very, very special guest with us tonight. Super fucking excited to introduce Rex Bear of the Leak Project with us tonight. So guys, we're so excited. As you guys know, the Leak Project is a massive YouTube audience, and Rex is an amazing dude. He's mad connected in the esoteric realms. He's interviewed some super high level people. So we're super excited to have him on with us tonight. And of course, we also have Matthew LaCroix and Gerald Clark, again, the two amazing authors of books that we've talked about, before, the Suppression of Us, and then of course Gerald's books, the Anunnaki of Nibiru and the Seventh Planet. So guys, first off, Rex, thank you so much for coming to the show, man. How are you, buddy?
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for inviting me. Good to be here.
Awesome. Matt, how are you doing, brother?
Great. It's great to be joined by all these guys. Our podcast is growing, and I think that's a great thing.
Totally awesome. Gerald, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing really well, and I have to say the audience likes what we're doing. So we'll just keep it on course, on glide path, and just keep exposing what's on our hearts and our minds. And see where this goes. Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to have Rex with us tonight. I mean, again, all of us, we look up to him. We've been, listening to his show. He's got a massive audience, so this is totally great for all of us, but more so for people, right? Because we're really doing a great job of bringing truth to the masses, and as many people that can be exposed to this message as possible is good for all of us. So I'm going to jump in. We've got a ton of questions, and some of the questions, you guys, if I'm missing from some recent stuff, I know Marty posted some stuff on Facebook recently, but I'll just jump in. Just feel free to add and ad lib, obviously. So first question, and this was from episode 1, which was the Anunnaki of Nibiru, a consciousness war with special guests, the first episode we did together, and it's for Gerald. Katrina Simmons asked, I would love for you to do something on symbolism. Talk a little bit about symbolism, Gerald.
Okay. Well, it's such a deep topic, and it goes across so many cultures that you could spend a long time talking about it. So what I'll do is I'll just pick a couple of major Anunnaki players and walk you through time with them so you can see what their symbols are, and then you can start paying attention to it. And I'll start with my favorite one, which was E.A. Nudamood Enki, and his symbol started out, he had 2 symbols. His first symbol was originally the caduceus, and so this is the symbol with the wings coming out of a central pole with snakes coming around it and the knob on top. Eventually it got given to his kid. So that was his original symbol, but he also had the symbol of the trident. I think that's what everybody knows him by. So Enki was ranked 40 on the Anunnaki Council, and he was also a high-ranking member of the Greek gods, where he was known as Poseidon. Okay, and Poseidon's symbol there was, again, the trident. Now what's interesting is you can follow the trident into various different cultures, especially the Indus Valley culture, where you might see that trident show up in the Mahabharata and several other of those documents. So then you start asking yourself, well, was he involved over there? And it turns out he was. So there's one symbol. And let's talk about the second one that I talked about. So the caduceus symbol to me was probably my favorite symbol, because it was a symbol that represented the alchemical transformation of a primitive worker into somebody they considered one of the sons of God.
Right.
Okay. So
yeah.
And I've described it many times, but it turns out that symbol got affiliated with the medical industry. So
exactly.
So the American medical industry and the British medical system still uses Enki's son's symbol representing health. So
it's amazing. It's plastered everywhere.
Yeah. Well, we have pictures of it in Sumer, in some of the cuneiform documents where they're showing the tree of life affiliated with this same symbol. And I think it's a wonderful story to talk about, but we could spend a lot of time talking about symbols. We could take another one. For instance, let's take Zeus Enlil. Okay. Enlil's symbol, since he was the lord of the air, he chose a symbol that represented the air, which was a predatory bird, the eagle, right? So whenever you see the eagle, think Enlil, okay? And it turned out his son, Ninurta, also being affiliated with the Lord of Air, had a double-headed eagle that represented him. And if you look at the double-headed eagle, it goes way back in history, all the way back to the Hittites, and even further. So, and the Hittites, I believe, even, well, the Hittites that we're referring to relative to Göbekli Tepe in that era around 12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the survival culture after the Great Flood, because these people existed a long time before that in Mesopotamia. So
Gerald, let's just this is awesome.
Yeah,
this
so
is
we could go on just forever.
No. So this is so deep. So let's talk about the caduceus.
Okay.
And let's be honest. I mean, let's tell the people that, and you expound on this, and Matt jump in, and Rex is going to be right back. But I mean, isn't this just literally the Anunnaki saying to us, "Hey, we control the medical industry, and and even more so, because we know what's the bigger moneymaker, the pharmaceutical industry, which also has the caduceus splashed and splattered everywhere."
Well, let's think about this. At what point did doctors give up the Hippocratic oath to do no harm?
Yeah.
And sign up to the big pharma oath of sell those pills because I got a Porsche payment to make. When did this happen?
Amazing.
You know it happened. Okay, it happened. So the idea that they're doing that and smearing the false caduceus symbol that represented our highest state of potential being, that's awful. And
isn't that the way it seems to go? The symbols that tend to mean the best thing tend to be the ones that are used so that they can trash it, so
Exactly.
that our associations with that whatever that various things like ISIS, right?
Exactly.
The idea that this kind of this funded terrorist group to inflict fear on the world is taking the name of like the most beautiful feminine divine thing you can imagine of a being, rather than the opposite of violence and vile.
Well, Matt, it's like you always say, everything is a derailment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's just ask the question. Why do you think somebody is smearing ISIS and affiliating her with a barbarian horde? And I'll let you think about it for a second, but if the Lord of the Command, who was trying to eliminate the primitive workers, wanted them gone, in a way he's blaming his half-sister for this barbarian horde that's running around the planet that he has to now take care of, right? Is that not what he's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
He trashes his own family too. It doesn't seem to have any bounds with him, with endless Zeus seeking Yahweh, seeking power over his dominion of his reign of being an almighty king, or whatever his dominion over earth is, seems to have no bounds in whether or not someone's in his family, or whether or not he blew up his own son in like a nuclear weapon attack.
Oh my God! When I read that account, what he's talking about is the account of Nanar Sin,
yeah,
who was Allah, and all the way back in the Ultra-Hastings account. This is Enlil's son, okay?
Yeah,
who led the rebellion of the Ajiji workers to surround the Ekur fortress that belonged to Enlil. Okay, so as payback for that, I believe, is what happened.
So Rex, I want your thoughts on this. So we're talking about symbols, and the code of, like, just how much they represent in society. Where we were talking literally about the caduceus or the caduceus, Enki or Hermes' sign, and how it's just been completely turned around and made to be what it really represents, which is opposite of what it really was representing. So what are your thoughts on the symbolism? Like, I think what we're trying to say is that, this is the way the Anunnaki are still there, and they're still in power, and it just, even though the symbolism has changed or turned around, it's just that lineage that they're still there for anybody who wants to understand.
Right. Well, with symbolism, if you study the occult or many ancient practices, whether it's Eastern or Western philosophy, you will find certain symbolism will represent certain energies. And for those that study particular religions, especially the Abrahamic religions, they feel that certain symbols represent evil and darkness and the Antichrist, and that you can get possessed. And I'm not putting words in all Christians' mouths, but I'm just saying the overall archetype of that religion, or those three types of religions, the Abrahamic texts, teach those things to be something evil. If you can think for yourself with your third eye, or if you can kind of activate your sixth sense more than somebody else can, they're going to call you demonic and you're summoning evil spirits. So I think that they use those symbols and hide them and say, okay, that's from the devil, that's from the Dark Lord. If you think that that symbol is something good, then you're going to burn in hell and you're going to have to repent, because they can represent certain things. If you get into psychology, if you actually research hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, marketing tools, sales tactics, etc., those symbols do a lot more than just, you know, somebody going out and saying abracadabra or something like that and creating magic or something. There's really a lot of connections to these certain symbols. So what you guys are talking about, that specific symbol, I'm thinking of the DNA strands that you will see in, you know, hospitals and paramedics and such, and that will also represent Thoth, which is not a bad thing from the research that I've done.
No. Not at all. It just, I think we just kind of liken it, at least for me personally, in my seeking and research and all that. Like I realize now that it's still a lineage from a time long ago that is still enmeshed in current culture, and so there is, whether it's dark or light symbolism, massive symbolism there for those willing to see it.
Hey, I want to do one for the females. We talked a little bit about Isis just briefly, and she actually, her affiliated planet was Venus. Okay, so when you go read Isaiah 14:2, or is it 12? 14:12? 12, where it's talking of the only reference to Lucifer being the son of the morning star.
Right.
And I did a show on this talking about, well, if the morning star is clearly affiliated with Isis, then her son, whose offspring became the rulers of Babylon, through Marduk's son Nabu, included Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so really, if you go read that now, you'll realize that Enlil, Yahweh, was smearing Isis for having Marduk that was in his territory, occupying his space, and all the kings that came after him, he viewed them as fallen. You know, the reality about Nebuchadnezzar, he lived into very old age, and he was one of the most renowned kings of Babylon. He wasn't fallen like was insinuated there. Go read the history. So I'm like, wow, just lie after lie. And now that you've been exposed to what Mauro Bellino has said about this character, Yahweh, it all ought to start making sense. You know, this was a battle plan most of the way through.
Isn't it like for me, I think my favorite symbolism, that like the easiest one that people can just pick up and go look at, right, is like the if you have a dollar bill and you just look at the symbolism on the back of the dollar bill. I know that's done a lot of times in places, but really it is an unbelievable symbol, because like we're talking about, they've taken the pyramid, which is a symbol that was about like healing and knowledge of the energy centers of the earth, and they've turned it into the concept of, we're using it as the idea of a pyramid system, hierarchy system, where knowledge is kept only at the top, and society is modeled after that model. So, you know, you just pick up a dollar bill. Anybody who's getting skeptical, just go look at that. Just pick up a dollar bill and look at the back side. You have an unfinished pyramid with an all-seeing eye on top that's not complete yet. Every single symbol is, every single group of symbols in the back of that dollar, and this is something I talk about in The Illusion of Us, to connect. Every single group of symbols adds up to 13, which is supposed to represent the 13 families, the 13 elite families. And so all the stairs on the pyramid of 13, all the stars that are in the flag are add up to 13, and you see 13 overwhelming on the entire thing. So you see symbolism just screaming at you through our money that we're using day to day, and people aren't even aware of it.
Do you realize now that the 13 is the number of the creator of all? And that
exactly.
And that's a smear. That's a smear too, right? There
it is. So they're taking everything that's divine, and it's supposed to be about a divine spiritual connection, and they're turning it into it's a total duality polarity thing. They're just reversing it on us so that we can associate 13. Think about it. 13. Unlucky 13, Friday the 13th, all these things. It turns out that the source is represented as 13, so they're just going to make it seem like the worst thing possible.
Exactly. Well, look at the 5-pointed star. It shows up everywhere. It's on the U.S. flag. It's everywhere. Look at the 5-pointed star and other countries' flags. Well, if you go back in history, whose First of all, the Sumerians stated that the Anunnaki represented planets with a star symbol. So if it had 7 stars, they were talking about the Earth. If they had 6 stars, it was talking about Mars and things like that. Not always, but oftentimes that was the case. Okay, so if the 5th planet then would be Venus, okay, which has 5 points, right? So a 5-pointed star was Venus, in Ninmah's symbol, who was Isis, right? The mother of humanity. Well, look who's tried to claim it at the halftime shows. Okay.
Right.
This also goes back in history. And Nana was fighting for the symbol of Venus, just, with this Enlilite-Enkiite war. They were oftentimes trying to subvert and steal each other's symbols. So the idea that Inanna Hathor is now confused with Isis, Ninmah, that's not an accident. It's in all over in the writings, and it was done intentionally, and they were not the same being. I can guarantee you. I have a picture from the Egyptian Book of the Dead where they're sitting right next to each other, being shown in a table and named different names. They're not the same being, but they're being portrayed that way. So here, once again, one of the Enlilites, Inanna, is trying to subvert Isis from being the role that she had as one of the progenitors of mankind. So all 3 of them, Enki, Isis, and Ningshita. Now, Ningshita got it worse than just about all of them, right? If you go back in history, it used to be the goddess and the dragon were the symbols for Ningshita and for Isis back in history, okay? At a certain point, they traded those symbols for the upright 5-pointed star that Isis still has today. You invert that symbol, and it's Ningshita's symbol. But it's been turned into, look what it's been turned into. Right?
And look what the Nazis did. They took a beautiful symbol that was about like eternal life, and they turned into
absolutely.
And they turned it. So that's an intentional design that you can see that it correlates to all of these things.
But look how effective it's been since the Middle Ages, when they were torturing people for being witches. The pentagram and the dragon both got demonized, right? Well, when you go back to Sumeria, the dragon represented kingship, and the pentagram, the upside down star, represented Ningshita himself. So, this whole smearing ought to be obvious to people that are looking.
So this is a little off topic, but we're so deep into it right now. We get this question a lot. So is Thoth, however people pronounce him, is he really the incarnation of him? Is he every human or sapient seeker or great teacher? Is he Krishna? Is he Jesus? Is he Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl? Is he all of those things to all of these different cultures? He's just him, so that we can finally put a face to a name?
In general, after finding all those connections myself, and then reading Edgar Case's table of the incarnations of Jesus, Thoth, and now reading Mauro Bellino's book, where he actually went back to the source of all the inspiration for the Gnostics and stuff and ties it to Thoth, and the Emerald Tablets and the Kabbalion. It all
has to be him,
well,
right?
and there were 2 other data points. Number 1, the Adapa tale.
Right.
There's a section D that I didn't publish that apparently said Thoth was going to be sent back by Anu to be and establish the Adapa as the very first priest for humanity. So his role was to teach humanity. Then in the Emerald Tablets, okay, he got commissioned by the Dweller, who was his father Enki, to give up his birthright to go back to Arulu and stay in through this age of darkness that he described until, I guess you could call it, the completion of the project he started in the Nile, which was completing the elevation of humans to a higher consciousness. I think that's what the incomplete pyramid truly represented. It's an incomplete mission that got interrupted.
And then they trashed it.
Exactly.
Just like, and here's the symbolism connection to what you just said just now. If Thoth was Jesus, then the Roman Christian church then took Jesus and turned him into the total opposite of what he really was, right?
Well,
so turning him into a false idol god.
I want to talk about that real quickly, because I put this at the end of my first book, and apparently it's come up several times.
Yeah.
And somebody said something really profound about this. They tried to make the idea of the salvation energy that this being Jesus brought outside of yourself. Okay, there was a very key verse that talked about the Spirit of God is among us, and they were trying to say that meant that Jesus, the Spirit, is residing and he's right over there, but they kept trying to defer from the fact that it was inside. He told you the kingdom of heaven is within. So if you're worshiping somebody who's not even supposedly here, that's in spirit form, that's going to come later and save you, listen, that's a complete distraction from the gift he left you inside.
And so, Gerald, you're so right. And in fact, you know, the Masters of the Far East, that's the whole message of all 6 of the books.
Exactly. Savior, right? He's always a savior because we always need some kind of lead.
Well, think about the Christians, like you guys said. I mean, they changed the name, the nomenclature. I mean, it was the teacher Jesus. It was Jesus the Christ, not Jesus Christ.
That's right. He's talking about a level of consciousness that's referred to as a Christ consciousness. That's right.
And then when people say amen, right? Gerald loves this. When people say amen, they're just doing homage to Ra.
Yes.
And so it's amazing. These are all just like we're praising these gods that we're being tricked into. It's all just trickery.
Let me jump in here real quick and add something to that, because you brought up Ra.
Please.
And if you look at symbolism and how important it actually is, any bank that's out there, any bank, their symbol is the sun. Any of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Even credit unions. So why is it that these organizations and these banks and these financial institutions will spend so much time to hide the symbol, yet make it obvious for the initiated? There's a reason they use the sun as a symbol, and you can incorporate that however you want to. If you look at certain religious institutions and the Vatican and places in France and England and around the world, and certain roads and systems, they will correlate with the sun and certain parallels at locations and numbers. It all connects at a certain primordial level, and they harness this energy. I mean, that's what they do. Whether you believe in it or not, they do, and that's why they do these things. It's almost like their dogmatic rituals are embedded in their DNA from generational, you know, they kind of stick within certain families. And I'm referring to the super elite, the aristocratic bloodlines that have the clandestine hand behind the scenes.
You think they're just gathering all the wealth for the sun god, Ra? That's basically what the collaboration is.
I don't know.
I want to follow up. I want to follow up on that name, Matt. I don't think people get the full extent of what it is they're doing when you use a name. It has power.
Yes,
it has power. Okay, so if you're praying to your Father in heaven, whoever you believe that is, and then whatever and you end that prayer with the name of this being, and you don't even know who it is. Listen, Amun-Ra was Enki's son Marduk. Okay, there's no question about it. So you're venerating Marduk at the end of every prayer that you're doing. What do you think that does to your vote at the end of a zodiacal house? Okay, you belong to him by saying
that's
that.
Right.
That's what it's all about. Okay,
you're in his army.
Mind blowing.
So you got to be careful about who you think it is you're praying to and what names you're using. Because listen, names mean things and words mean things, and it matters.
Well, let's just say it right now, and then we'll jump into another question.
Okay.
Those books, okay, have changed my existence as a human being. I mean, I'm on book 4 now. Again, the 6 books of the Ascended Masters of the Far East, because it's really put religion in its proper perspective. And I highly recommend every human being that listens to this read those books, because regardless of your religion, your faith, your denomination, what you believe, you will see a different angle, not twisted. Completely untwisted. There's no rhetoric. There's no spin bullshit. There's no derailments. Wow. This is literally a bunch of ascended guys, yogis, whatever you want to call them, from the Far East in Tibet and those areas, who literally have, as Gerald said, the Christ consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Actually,
themselves. And they're literally telling you mm-hmm. that religion is a scam, that it is within, that our spirituality and our desire to be at this Christ conscious level all lies within. We have everything within.
Mm-hmm. Never be led. Never be led.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think I turned you on to the Masters of the Far East, Jay. And I'll tell you,
Now Monica's read the whole things too. Monica can't put them down.
Oh, it is the ultimate. If you could figure out how to make your spiritual path arrive to what they're able to do and their understanding and their connection to the hologram and realizing how much a part of it they are. Listen, I want to tell you something about what they're doing over there. And I actually looked into this scientifically, and I'll just share just a little bit without overwhelming you, okay? But I've looked into the scientific concept of what they're doing relative to manifesting matter and changing their form at will. And it has a lot to do with what I would call light encoding of the reality matrix. And I think Rex and I have talked about this. You know, what is it that constitutes all matter? And I think we now understand it's vibration and various bonds between the periodic table of the elements, okay?
That's right.
So if you understood how to do that, you could make stuff show up in the simulator anytime you wanted.
Right.
You could make yourself dematerialize and show up at another place like these guys do in the Master of the Far East, right?
Yeah.
What was that experiment done? What was that experiment done where they made some vibrationals, they had some sound, it was a certain pitch and vibration, it actually created these spiders out of nowhere. They like started popping up, and then they basically tried to make it hush hush. You know what I'm talking about? That experiment?
No, I haven't heard of that, but I know that with cymatics you can probably do all kinds of various manifestations. So, what I wanted to tell you about a little bit about the science of what I discovered between my knowledge of the human body and how what I think these guys are doing to manifest matter and do all these absolutely amazing things that are representative of the co-creative capabilities of us when we reach our highest state of this Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
That's the religion they discovered, right? Where energy meets matter, and the vertical relationship with the grand system architect and how
we are the creators.
That's right.
We are the co-creators.
That's right. So, assuming that to be the case, I looked into, and I have to give Michael E. Hill some credit for turning me onto these documents that I ended up with a couple of years ago, okay? But the idea is, in general, if you can figure out how to change your human energy potential beyond what you would call a threshold potential, think of it as a battery, okay? And if you were able to change your battery above a certain threshold voltage and then do some internal visualizations, getting permission from the quanta to manifest matter and go through this little ritual, this is what they were doing. So apparently within each of us is built a quantum encryption encoder, just like the Creator of All has, that can take energy in the environment that you're in and actually bring together the creative force from the Creator of All through you to create matter.
And look at that. That's what we really are, and that's what's being hidden.
And I gave you the short version of it. Okay, it gets really scientific, but I actually summarized it onto a single sheet of paper and came up with my own light encoding reality matrix mantra so that I could work on this, because I think it's something that we all could achieve in your lifetime. It should really get,
it actually goes into what, that PDF that guy, one of our readers or listeners sent us. It talks about how the Anunnaki have this special kind of capacitance, right? So that's where, like you said, they're off the chart for us, but they do have that ability that we're trying to seek ultimately. So I guess what throws me off is, like, why are they negative then? If they have that ability at that level, this capacitance where they can, kind of come in and out of our different, our reality, why are they negative? Or is it just, do we have to understand that there's negative and positive no matter what?
That's the answer. That's the answer.
That's what I thought.
It's never just one thing. It's so complicated. And even something that looks negative to us may not seem negative to those who are doing it.
Yeah.
Like when you're walking through your yard and you step on like an ant nest, right? And you just keep walking. You're not even aware that you've done anything. That's not even a negative thing to you. Yet, if you're the perspective of an ant, right? Some civilization down there, you've just destroyed and annihilated their entire colony.
So Rex, question for you. You've spoken to way more people than we have. Have you ever spoken to anyone that actually told you that they've met an Anunnaki and have talked to them?
Yeah. I have a couple, actually. If you go listen to the archives at leakproject.com, under the X-Files section, there's several interviews where I've talked to people that claim to have made contact with Anunnaki. Yeah.
So we just had this PDF, and I apologize that I didn't send this to you. Sent to us by one of Gerald's listeners, and he sent it to all of us, and we all looked at it over the weekend. And they mentioned that they're albino, and they have red eyes in certain levels of light. Now again, and they're tall, right? We know that they're tall. But, it's an avatar body. But let me tell you guys something that's really fascinating. There's a television show. Yeah, and I don't watch TV, as we all know, but I watch stuff on Netflix, right? When I'm bored and I want to do cardio or something like that, I'll pull shit up. And there's a show called Banshee that was on Showtime. It's dead. And they have this out. I'm not kidding you guys. This fucking blew my mind. But literally, they had this albino character in the show, an albino, and he's a big dude, like literally over 7 foot tall. And at the end of this 45-minute episode, they do like, prologue or cuts. It's like screen cuts. And literally at the end of this episode, and Matt, here's our Hollywood shit. They have this albino guy just on a quick flash. They show him, they're sitting there menacing, looking at the camera with glowing red eyes.
Isn't that interesting?
And it blew me away. And nobody who watches that show would ever know, unless you were clued in like we are,
they love to do that, don't they? Don't they love to do that?
It had to be whoever produces. And by the way, this show, Gerald, this show is incredibly, intensely, insanely violent. It's sex, violence, murder, and death. I mean, it's got the markings of Marduk and Enlil. It's insane. But I'm watching this and I'm freaking out. Like, it was like 3 days ago, and I'm like, oh my God. It was like 2 days, again, synchronicity, 2 days after we had that PDF. And so I'm asking you, Rex, has anyone ever told you they're albino and they have red eyes?
The red eyes thing I've heard, albino I have heard. I don't know if it's in reference to the Anunnaki, but one of the things that's interesting is I've talked to people that have claimed to have made contact with marshmallow people, with reptilians, with draconians, with mantis aliens, with grays, with Nordics, with beings that are over 12 feet tall. Matter of fact, I talked to a gal the other day that claimed to have made contact. I think she said they were Anunnaki. They were over 12 feet tall. And here's the thing. With all the people that I talk to, I really, it's tough to make me go, seriously, you saw that, or you're claiming to have this experience? Because I've heard just about everything. And you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And I feel that when people come on the show, obviously most of the time I feel they genuinely believe it. There's a couple people that I've had on the show, and afterwards I've said, do I even want to air this? But I've decided, hey, I'll let people come up with their own conclusions, and I try and be as neutral as possible on as many subjects as possible. But yeah, I don't know. But the different types of beings that these people have claimed to have made contact with, I almost wonder if they're cloned, if they've got some machine kind of like Star Trek where they're like, okay, let's just put in these numbers real quick and there it is, you've got the Corvette version.
It's like Gerald says though, right? Like these higher dimensional entities, whatever they are, they have the ability to make us, our minds see whatever they want us to see. Right, Gerald?
Pretty much. I think that's one of their real tricks in the bag, is the ability to skew our perception. Right. Because our sensors are so easily deceived, they're so limited, so it's easy
Rex, you've
had assimilated.
Exactly. Rex, you've actually had Dr. David Jacobs on your show, right? So I love Dr. Jacobs. I'll let you talk about that in a second, but his books blew my mind when I read his books. And he says, that's exactly what he says, Gerald. He says that whoever is doing the abductions, and again, by the way, we can talk about this later. He says the abductions have stopped. So something's about to happen. But he says that they're implanting in the consciousness of the people that are being abducted either a mantis, a reptilian, or a gray. That everyone, the 1,800 people that he's progressively hypnosed, says that it's one of those three things. And males and females, they all come back to the same story when he does the regression hypnosis. So it's pretty fascinating. To me, it seems like that's what they plant in the brain based on the fear factor of that individual.
Let me jump in real quick,
sure.
Because he did talk about how all of his experiences where he's done these regression sessions with people, at least from what I got from him, I don't want to put any words in his mouth or anything, but what I got essentially was he says that most of these experiences are people that are getting abducted to teach these hybrids and ETs how to function in daily life, like how to walk across the street without getting hit by a car or something.
Exactly.
Yet I know people personally that that's not what they talk about when they get picked up. Like they have some pretty gnarly stuff go down, similar to the TV shows, or if not shows, but the film that was out there, Whitley Strieber. What was that one called? Communion. Yeah, like where they literally did stuff that you don't want to talk about and tell people about. And so I don't know what he's saying, if there's stuff that he's not talking about, and I certainly respect him. Maybe there's things that he can't talk about. But why are there so many people out there that get abducted? Why do they have Rh negative blood?
Right.
And why do their parents get abducted? And why do their sisters or brothers get abducted as well? It seems like it's in the family.
Absolutely. There has to be a connection between the idea of if 80% of the population of the planet is Rh positive and only 20% of the population is Rh negative, and the Rh negative has to do with being negative for the rhesus factor. Basically, there's these two divergent DNA lines of humanity, right? And one of them has a rhesus introduction and one of them doesn't. And the idea generally is the one that doesn't have a rhesus introduction tends to have a little bit of a higher capacity of conscious expansion simply because it has more Anunnaki DNA left in it that was untampered. So if those are the two correlations, then maybe they're whichever side is abducting people, whatever side is deciding to do it, I don't know whether it's the Anunnaki or connected to whatever it is. I think they're looking at the Rh negative humans to see the progression of them compared to the other population, because they're worried about the wake up factor here, I think.
Well, so we can skip ahead, Gerald. We can jump around. I mean, this is a fascinating discussion, obviously. But
whatever you guys want to.
Well, we talked about the prototype episode for Ancient Aliens this past week, and this is exactly where we're going right now.
I couldn't see it because it's restricted here.
Did you see it, Rex? Did you see the newest Ancient Aliens episode?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole episode, I'll just give you a 100,000-foot version. Okay. And by the way, just so everybody knows, I've watched every episode 1,000 times. This season of Ancient Aliens, it's like they've dropped so many truth bombs this year comparatively to all the previous years. It's fascinating. But this episode was about, it's titled The Prototypes. It's literally how the Earth is a zoo, and we have just been tinkered and tweaked by not just the Anunnaki, but multiple species.
Yeah.
And they're coming from everywhere, and they've been coming here for millions of years, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was really good. It was a really fascinating show. But, I mean, here we go. I mean, Matt, expound. I mean, is that really what is happening, that they're just literally tweaking us to the next evolution?
Let me jump in for real quick and then go to Matt. This is exactly, and I told you about this, Rex, in the Alien Roswell interview, where they were talking about genetic contracts to build different life forms on different planets, right? And one of the names of the company was Bugs and Blossoms.
We come in peace.
So when you see that, realize that this is galactic wide and it wasn't just the Anunnaki. Go ahead, Matt. So
it seems as though at some point Marduk realized that he was never going to have the kind of kingship. This is what I'm finding now. He's never going to have the kind of kingship that he hoped for, the empire that he wanted. So he decided and rule over Earth and take over Earth as his own and become God over what Enlil had already decided to become God too. So they're like, Enlil and Marduk seem to be fighting over who's God on this planet. And so Marduk, the morning star, Lucifer, also known as Lucifer, is directly what I see behind this this alliance that was formed with others who I see this alliance with looks like Orion.
The Dark Brotherhood.
Yeah, it looks like an alliance with some side of Orion who is maybe like a reptilian side
the Alpha Draconians,
who mastered the art of this hologram illusion. Whereas if there's a being who exists on a vibrational frequency of a kind of blue spectrum of the vibrational frequency of the wavelengths of light, if you can put them on a totally opposite wavelength than they're supposed to exist in, you can literally control reality for them, and you can control all these things. Now in another way, if you can manipulate their DNA and you can manipulate to put in to take things out and to dumb down and unplug all the DNA. You look at the caduceus, we were just talking about the symbol. That's just our DNA intertwined, the double helix DNA. And then we look at what the Anunnaki specifically, Enlil coming through at a later time to downgrade us, went in and literally unplugged all of our chakra systems and unplugged so much of our DNA. So we had this latent DNA, thankfully, that's still in there that I'm sure Enlil wasn't aware of. But and it's amazing that we have this latent DNA that's activating people all over the world as their vibration increases.
Yeah, I think one of the key parts of that latent DNA is probably the 8th circuit that has the ability to reprogram what happened to you in all the other circuits, right? So
yeah,
it's interesting. So we should focus on that one, right? Since we're so far along down the road here. I don't know. You guys seem to think we're in the 7th or 8th inning. Rex hears this crap all the time, right? So he's jaded over the reality of what may be happening or not because of getting both sides continuously, right? Nibiru is here how many times has it been here already, right?
Oh, I mean, it's every 6 months, it's going to be the end of the world. Every other day, there's going to be a cataclysm. I mean, we got to worry about 100-foot tidal waves. We got to worry about the 442 nuclear reactors that are going to go into China meltdown. And we're going to have to worry about all the radioactive isotopes from Fukushima. And we better not go eat any seafood because, the Gulf oil disaster. I mean, so my goodness. And then if we want a lobster, then there's genetically modified lobsters. And
wait a second.
Man, can I just have a fucking organic sandwich and not have to buy Fespanol packaging in there?
I thought you went vegan, dude. I announced it on your show.
I am vegan. I will not eat steak. No.
Dude, I'm with you, man.
So
Gotta
good.
have a ribeye steak. Gotta have a ribeye steak every now and then. I'm totally with you. Well,
I've mostly cut red meat, but I still really like chicken. I still really like chicken.
But wait a minute. But let's stay there, okay?
Yeah, okay.
That's pretty deep. So here's me. This is my opinion. I just go where the evidence is, right? We know this is a fact. And my brother, by the way, I won't mention who he is, but he works, he's high-level government clearance, so he knows some things, and he's told me some things. And they're building things underground, guys, okay? We know that there are systems. We know that there are cities. We know there are domes.
When weren't they, though? You know what I mean? And sorry to interrupt, but when weren't they building underground bunkers? You go back 60 years.
They've been around for literally probably millions of years, right? We know that. They're just rebuilding them and restabilizing them. But if the quote unquote power structure is doing that for some reason, is it in the event of, or is it because there is a specified time when they're going to go there?
That's a good question. Gerald, do you want me to take that?
I will. Let me do.
You got it.
Let me just do 1 minute on it because.
Okay.
First of all, it's unexplainable, as Jay said, that when the TPP was done, we're talking. Actually, let's go back to 9/11. Trillions of dollars got written off the books. Disappeared, and now
before 9/11, by the way.
And now so now you know. That it's going into these subversive continuity of government facilities, you have to ask yourself why. It's been going on since at least after World War II.
Yeah.
In a big, big way. Now you go back to old civilizations like in Turkey. They've got what's Derinkuyu is an underground city that would hold 20,000 people. So the idea of having to get underground to avoid something in the environment or war. It's not new. So you can't really distinguish whether it's war, an environmental impact thing, or what it is. But the timing of
Maybe they found out what's in Dugway. I mean, if you look at the Dugway out there, they're building biological weapons that if they were to get released, I mean, there's some nasty stuff out there. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And, you have to ask yourself, historically, the Army and the United States used silver as a healing agent for burns and lots of other things, right? The problem was Johnson & Johnson couldn't figure out how to make money with it, so they put it out of business and went into prescriptions and all this other stuff, right?
Right.
But the reality is, for some reason, they're trying to eliminate colloidal silver for sale in the U.S. market, and we've been a victim of it multiple times. And you have to ask yourself, if colloidal silver has been tested in government labs against all the agents they've built or that they've tried, HIV, AIDS, Ebola, colloidal silver kills them all, okay? You have anthrax. You have to ask yourself, Well, why are they making it unavailable all of a sudden? Are they
How
planning?
about hydrogen peroxide? You can't get that in the UK because you're going to, they might make a bomb with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I think they're.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Right? How many times you had hydrogen peroxide in your ears as a kid, right?
Well, look, pandemics have swept the planet many times before. I think it could happen naturally or from a lab introduced virus that could spread very quickly in today's society.
I mean, Matt, jump. You got to ignore it, and you can jump in here in 2 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just say this. So, all of us are well read. You know, Rex had so many people come on a show and tell them so many stories, but I think we all agree that if the technology that we see, in the mainstream is really not the tech that they have, and again, who's they? We're not going to define who they is, but the elites, the power structure.
Reptilian shapeshifters.
The reptilian shapeshifters. The reality is...
Hey, don't talk about Hillary like that.
Sorry, David. But
loves you.
The reality is that we do have to assume that they do spend time, right? I mean, the whole unified field theory, Farrell, I know you've had Farrell on, I love Farrell. And the best guys out there have researched it, and it was available. Einstein knew about it. The United States government and God knows whatever secret space, programs that are out there, they know how to fucking do it.
Gerald used to work on that stuff, but he can't talk about it anymore.
I mean, Interstellar, guys, let's be honest. Interstellar was a movie about it. 90% of the world public is not fucking smart enough to even understand what was going on in Interstellar.
It's like a way to introduce technology before they actually introduce it. So the way I see it is this: there was a treaty signed in looks like 1954 between President Truman and the so-called others who are here, who had a various dark motive, and the treaty was so for, and this is something I talk about in my book briefly. The treaty was thus, it was in the United States, and it was done over, if you hand over some of the keys to the democracy of the United States, we will give you technology from what we have. And so it was decided through various coercion and whatever it was that would happen. And so technology was given to the United States government in exchange for power. What happened is, the United States ended up becoming tricked, and they ended up losing all power of the United States. And that's how, if you look at our founding fathers, who in the beginning were founding based on the Constitution, all these things, they end up getting.
Do you buy that official story?
I think it was based on good, because I know that they're Freemasons, but I think that it was infiltrated and corrupted.
It's always been infiltrated.
I know, but
I don't care if they're Freemasons or not, but as far as the founding fathers being like, let's start this freedom, you guys, let's give them the Constitution.
It's definitely more story than anything. It's more.
It goes all the way back to Francis Bacon, who was talking about in his book about the creation of the New Atlantis. Okay.
Exactly.
He is the father of America, really. If you look at what he wrote. So the question is, if they wanted to create a new Atlantis, listen. First of all, if you go back and read about what was going on in Atlantis, we want that. Solon wanted
golden
that.
Age, baby, golden age.
Thought the Atlantean. It was an Enkiite. It was an Enkiite city.
But what happened? If the United States was supposed to be set up as the new Atlantis, okay.
The Dark Brotherhood infiltrated.
This is what was going on right when there were different factions of the Masons that were being infiltrated by the Illuminati, right?
Exactly.
Well, this happened right around that period, okay? 1776.
Yep.
Adam Weishaupt, right?
Yep, Adam Weishaupt.
So from that point forward, I think the Masons probably got turned over to serving an entity that they didn't think they were serving, and only a few of them knew it. Okay. Actually, in 1895, in the York Rite in England, they replaced Thoth as the master of the Masons and replaced it with a Christian god. Now you know who that was. It was Enlil. It was Enlil.
Right.
Yes.
Go ahead, Rex.
Now, many of these mystery schools, whether it's the Rosicrucians or the Freemasons, there's different levels that people talk about in being initiated. Now, a Freemason, you can get up to the 32nd degree, and then anything above that isn't really considered a Freemason degree. It's going to be an offshoot of the Freemasonry. Now, if you look at the Rosicrucian degrees, when you get to a certain level, it is called the Illuminati level. It doesn't mean that you're a part of the Illuminati, and I feel that that's another word, kind of like symbols, that get thrown around a little bit too much. And you guys know what it is, but a lot of people out there, when you say Illuminati, you know, they're thinking of these guys around a table that are basically conspiring to take the world down slowly and harvest the energy, you know, like these evil emperors, essentially. But what it really comes down to is the Illuminati. That term itself is somebody that's illuminated. And there's good Freemasons, there's good people that are part of the Rosicrucians and other mystery schools where they just want knowledge and information. So when you say, well, people at the higher levels are, you know, they're the ones that are deciding what's going out. Well, 99% of the people that are Freemasons don't necessarily know are in that.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean they're not as powerful. It doesn't mean they're not as important. It just means they're not a part of the same system that those guys are. Just like anything else out there, there's good and bad in every faction.
Well,
so I just want
hold on 1 second, Joe. That's 100% accurate. Because I literally 3 weeks ago finished the book, The Lost Secrets of King Solomon, written by Lawrence Gardner, who is a knight and a brilliant guy, and he's done so much work, probably more work than anybody on the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, all of them. And he basically says, his theory at the end of this book is that all of, exactly what you said, Rex, all the mystery schools, all the information, which all came from Thoth, have been subverted since when Jerry said it was, which is in the early 1700s. All of it is bullshit. And anybody who's a Mason today who's been initiated and indoctrinated and done whatever, has no earthly idea what the original mystery school principles of Masonry and Rosicrucianism even means.
No, they don't. They don't. Yeah, it was originally about alchemy, right?
Exactly.
And transforming yourself.
Atomic gold, exactly.
To become the caduceus symbol, where you had the wings of Mercury, you had your lateral ventricles firing, and you were operating in a different consciousness, right? That's what they wanted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's always a subversion. There's always some insidious, sinister plot to subvert and to make us think that it's the opposite.
Hey, I wanted to point out something kind of esoteric. Speaking of Washington, D.C. and the Masons, I went there in 2009 to do some research on my book. And I noticed, you know, every tourist map you look at had the inverted pentagram right on top with a string coming down from the Scottish Rite Temple on 16th Street, running right down to the apex of it at the Scott Street Circle where the chain would attach to the pentagram. All this, you know, pointing to the Masons clearly having design influence over Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I started looking at the symbol very, very closely. And I realized that the pentagram was used in a way for good and for evil. Okay? It was always used for good when it was Thoth's symbol. You know, we talked about being the inversion of Isis's symbol, the five-pointed star.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you look at the one in D.C., it was designed to be an incomplete pentagram. So if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, there's an opening there. This is a very esoteric piece of knowledge. When that symbol is used with a broken link on it like that, that's how they summon in the dark forces. I was like, what? Really?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't know that, but that's what. So somehow, about the time the Masons were mapping out the Washington, D.C. street plan, there was some French influence and some American influence going back and forth trying to decide this. Okay, whoever made that decision about that symbol, I think was part of the Illuminati that was infiltrating the Masons, because I think if you read the original Mason charter, it's clearly, their creed looks like it came from Thoth. It was about raising the consciousness of humanity and all these other things that were, you know, coincident with the kind of stuff you would see on the pillars in Atlantis.
All of the mystery schools were literally the priest class from Egypt, whether it was Thoth or Osiris and Thoth are the same goddamn thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was, and then it was subverted by, as you said, Enlil, Marduk. I mean, you can't keep up with them.
Oh, I know. It's well, if they've got IQs of about 1,200, according to what people have said, imagine playing chess with these guys. They'd outmaneuver you 4 or 5 times before you ever made a move. You know, it's like.
Well, let me show you
like
guys
Gary
something.
Kasparov, man. Every single time.
Let me show you guys something real quick.
till he met
just to cover the layer
Yeah.
of geniusness
Touché.
and how shrouded this is. Let me show you guys real quick. Let me share the screen with this.
Okay.
And Matt put this up there, so we'll let everybody see this. But this is, again, whoever did this prison warden consciousness, and how all of the government class, again, the mind manipulation, the military class, the intelligence agencies, the drugs, the arms trade, religion, banking and business, politics. This is one of the most genius charts that I have ever seen in my life. There are so many back doors in this, but if you read it, and again, you're as read as all of us are and as learned as all of us are, this is not crazy. But looking at that, understanding the level of deception, and how it's insane.
It's the pyramid. So this is how the pyramid of our social structure works. This is how it really works. And those at the very top get all the knowledge. And what's interesting about it, and one of the things I read about that's amazing, is let's take the idea of a military general that's a high-ranking military general, right, who's in some elite aspect. He may think he's at the top, but he's actually far from the top. But he thinks he's at the top. And that's how they trick everybody, by giving them layers of information as a need-to-know basis, based on so really, people are not all just evil people throughout this whole system. A lot of them are unaware of what they're really part of, because they don't know. They don't have information. So they're part of something that may be dark, but they don't actually always know that they're part of it.
Well, you're exactly right, Matt. Everything is compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Everything. And then they have the reverse trap doors. So, you may think that you know something. And then there's also, and we've all read this, I mean, how many of these guys that work at these like high-level government facilities actually are Clockwork Oranged? So they go during the day and they do their thing, and then when they leave, they go through something, Gerald says, like, whatever it is at the top of the door, and they go through their security thing, and they literally erase what they just learned that day. So they go back to their life.
Absolutely. The technology that's been suppressed, so remember that 1954 treaty we talked about with Truman? That was the point in which technology was no longer allowed to the general public, I believe. And there was a cap on technology since 1954, and so technology since then have become so advanced, for everything from controlling our vibrational frequency through HARP, all the way to these methods of being able to prevent us from any awareness of this.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely
amazing.
true. I mean, we know. Well, we talked about it last week, right? On biological systems war. I mean, we are being tuned and programmed at every level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It actually, somebody, I think we brought this up on one of the first shows, is like, how is it we made it to this consciousness level where we can be aware enough to be discussing this right now, given all the things that have been thrown at us?
Exactly. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
against all odds.
Yeah, actually, it speaks well to the geneticists that did our latent circuits, I have to say.
Right.
Thank you. To all those Enkyites that helped us.
Yeah. Well, the right-wing Christians want to make all of the Anunnaki fallen angels. And if you bring up the idea that you wouldn't even be able to be having this conversation or talking about any of this if they hadn't genetically created us or manipulated us, that doesn't resonate with anybody. You wouldn't even be here to even be having this conversation if they weren't involved.
As
You
horrible.
devil worshiper.
Yeah, as horrible as what some of them have done to us, they have also given us all these gifts at the same time.
Yeah,
Can't forget that.
Yeah, you got the good and the bad. Of course, the good has been suppressed so much that you didn't know about it. Hopefully, and from the other side, clearly there are forces that want to take the gift that were given to us away. These gifts I think the eternal spirit of the sun soul that connects you right back to the creator of all. That's what they want. They don't want
the spark inside us. They want to take it out.
Yeah, that's what they want. Because not everybody gets that. Because if you read through some of the literature in the Emerald Tablets, if you don't have that spark, no entrada. You cannot pass through the duat. You're not allowed to leave here if you don't have that spark. So think about that. So you'll always be an incarnated prisoner on this planet, one avatar body after the other, if your energy is never allowed to go to another dimension when you die. That's what they're saying.
And that's how we're quarantined here until we can ascend out.
That's right.
And then hopefully decide to come back maybe or something.
Wow.
So question for Rex, because you get so many people with so many stories, and clearly it sounds like you're not convinced that anything is going to happen anytime soon. In our last 3 episodes, we've all kind of shared that we do believe. And again, I'm my wife, Monica. You don't know my wife, but the other guys, they know my wife. My wife is incredibly intuitive, dude. I wouldn't call her clairvoyant, but she's like this one of those people that goes out in nature, and she's just very sensitive to everything. And she's been telling me for about 1.5 years that she's been sensing something. Something massive for humanity, conscious awareness, awakening. I don't know. But she senses it, and she's not sensed it to be positive. Gerald and I are of the same, mindset. We don't sense what is coming to be positive. Matt, on the other hand, is very positive and feels that we are an awakening is coming. What is your sense? I mean, and again, not to be crazy or anything, you talk to way more people than any of us. Do you sense that mankind is on the verge of a change?
Okay, so if you've ever listened to John Michael Greer, he talks about how he thinks that the world is going to essentially civilization where we're at in a cycle. It's just going to slowly dilapidate and continue to fall apart piece by piece by piece by piece. And in 100 years, it might start to kind of pick back up, but it's going to be farm and buggy kind of deal, horse and buggy essentially. So, and then you've got people that think we're going to be in this Jetsons type society, which would be my choice. I would love to be in a Jetsons / Star Trek society. I just watched the new Star Trek film, by the way, and I was pretty impressed. I was impressed. It wasn't quite as good as the one previous, but I definitely enjoyed it. And regardless, it would be nice if we could use this tech and get an opportunity to use it for our benefit. Do I think that we're going to have that chance? I certainly hope so. If you look at the age of Aquarius that we're in right now, we're supposed to have more information and knowledge. And if you look at us being able to express even what we're talking about right here and now, I would say that we're definitely in that opportunity. So do I think that there's going to be martial law? It's eventually going to happen. Do I think it's going to happen before the elections and that we're not going to have an opportunity to see somebody else get into the White House? I think that there's going to be somebody in the White House, and I think that Obama's probably going to take the head UN position is what I am thinking. It's probably going to be Hillary in office, and then things are going to continue to go on, and maybe they'll start doing some more gun control stuff. I do see that on the horizon. You look at mass shootings that are taking place, and man, I'll tell you, I have more questions than answers after I talk to people that were supposedly friends with somebody that was involved in that shooting. It's crazy how I would have more questions, especially after I interviewed somebody that was directly involved with a friend that was supposedly shot.
Well, I'll put you on the spot, Rex. I'll put you on the spot. Are they all false flags?
All of them? And what, I mean, that's
literally all of them. Every one. Are they a false flag?
What's a false flag to you?
A false flag meaning that they're created by various factions of our government with an intention of a longer term, bigger picture goal, which for these would be obviously taking the guns out of the American public's hands.
All of them that we see on the TV that's pushed on CNN, Fox, and the big mainstream media outlets.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say all of them. Would I say most of them or many of them? Yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, I would certainly think so. And especially,
I think we agree with you. I think it's too hard to believe otherwise. There's so many bullshit stories that come out of all of these things.
It doesn't mean that they're fake. It just means that they're orchestrated.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's what I mean with a false flag.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
9/11, we could define it all day. Was the entire United States government behind 9/11? Of course not. But were there various factions involved in 9/11 that stand to benefit both financially and politically? Of course.
Bush is obviously a the Bushes and the Saudi Arabia connection and all that stuff.
Every single war fought in the 20th, and if you want to classify the skirmishes that we got going on now in the 21st century, all after the fact, we see it's book a list type shit, right? Like we know in World War II, we knew that Roosevelt knew way before Pearl Harbor happened. I mean,
absolutely
create financial gain for select parties and industries, and they all happen for a reason. So the reality is I would assume that 9/11 was the foundation of the war on terror. So of course there were people involved.
If you guys want to get into some real deep stuff, even deeper, you got to listen to this interview that I did with Douglas Dietrich, or just listen to Douglas Dietrich. He is a whistleblower that would take Edward Snowden and kind of leave him in the dust. No
I started listening to that. I didn't realize he was Chinese.
Well, let me finish. Okay, so this guy was talking about these weapons that are being used by the military now that are like metaphysical weapons, stuff that's more dangerous than nuclear bombs. And the way that he talks about it, okay, so essentially he describes these anti-gods being linked with technology, and that's why we've been in this continual state of war, whether it's a proxy war or some other type of skirmish across the globe, drone strikes, etc., because these anti-gods literally feed off of this negative energy. And you listen to songs by, Mr. Ozzy Osbourne, Mr. Crowley, you think of that kind of stuff, talking about the generals going out there and doing these mass rituals and sacrifices. That's the kind of stuff that really I've been digging deep into. And if it links back to the Anunnaki, like you guys are discussing, and little Enki and stuff like that, that could put even more definition and a target specifically on what people need to be aware of as far as a reference point. But there's some dangerous stuff going on right now. And, whether or not I agree with Douglas or not, it doesn't matter. He brings some crazy stuff to the table. And then you watch the series Stranger Things on Netflix, which is a Stephen King series, which a lot of the stuff in there relates to what Douglas and I were discussing about the MK Ultra programs, what they call super soldiers, which aren't really super soldiers. They're basically people that from birth are taken away and they have experiments done on them to where they're literally sexual slaves, but they call them super soldiers, I guess, to make it sound cooler. But man, there's some crazy stuff going on out there. And that's the stuff that's really starting to uncover more in this day and age. And I think that people are going to continue to see these kind of things pop out of the woodwork. So it's great to talk with you guys about this kind of stuff.
I think we can, if you were talking about, we need to keep an eye on those darker forces like that are kind of, all part of that same type of aspect. And I see that as Luciferianism, Satanism is the same thing. And I think that was really derived from Marduk's decision, Ra, to basically totally infiltrate our political systems in our total social systems through these Skull and Crossbones and Bohemian Grove. These are all Luciferianism cult groups, I think. And I think they're all connected. If what you're talking about just a second ago, I think all of these are connected as part of this Luciferianism, very strange occult where they worship like fear and death and destruction. They feed off of it and all that stuff. That's all from Luciferianism, Satanism, I think. I think it's all from the same thing.
I got to chime in a little bit. First of all, Lucifer and Satan were not the same being.
No, I was waiting for you to jump in on that, Joe.
Even though the movement has
no.
Even though the movement has tried to make them the same,
they are not the same.
They are not. And actually,
the light bringer is not the same.
Well, I think the concept of a light bringer has also been subverted. Mm-hmm. Okay, because first of all, it's a Latin term. Yep. It never existed in the Bible. It came from the Latin Vulgate. Okay, you got to ask yourself, why was it inserted in the Bible where Enlil had editorial oversight over the whole thing and was smearing it, right?
Yeah, of course.
He didn't like the idea of a light bearer. So a light bearer could be for the Enkiite team or the Enlilite team, if they're saying that there's going to be a change in rulership and that now it's going to be light, not dark, right? That's kind of what the illusion is too. So I personally believe that that title has been taken over by the Illuminati, by the way, which is a Italian term, a Latin term, right? Right? The headquarters of the Roman Mafia where this all started, okay? And I think that term,
Rome never died.
I think that term is being smeared. And originally, you have to realize in Rome, the being that was venerated during the holiday of Saturnia on around December 25th was Apollo. Okay, that was Ninurta, Enlil's son. I think he wanted to be the light bearer for this new era because he wanted to be in charge. Okay, he was kind of in line to be on the council at a very high rank, born of his father and his half sister. Whereas Marduk was born of his father and his actual wife, which was Damkina or Ninki. He believed he was going in line to rule. So I think Apollo and Marduk, which is Ninurta and Marduk, I think they both want to be the light bearer. And right now, I think that's what's going on in Europe. Marduk has put himself at the top of this Illuminati pyramid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think his alliance with Enlil and Ninurta, the Enlilites, is working out very well. I think there's some infighting.
Lots of infighting.
I think that's why Enlil's ISIS barbarian herd just went and blew up Palmyra and the city of that belonged to Nabu. These are related to Marduk. So if Marduk's holding the torch thinking he's going to be light bearer and has aligned to this new world order with Enlil, I think there are factions that are breaking apart. And I think there's infighting in there, and I don't think it's going to last.
Maybe that infighting is showing you that they're ending their reign, though. Yeah, go ahead, Rex.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Syria. If you guys, I just watched some drone footage of the biggest city in Syria, and it looked like something out of a Terminator film, where just after the nuclear bomb, just after D-Day, I'm telling you, it blew my freaking mind. There was just buildings that looked like it was something out of a Hollywood film, yet it
like
really
shells.
wasn't.
They're just shells.
Mind-boggling.
You're
absolutely mind-boggling.
You're seeing what that spirit of destruction that's been unleashed in the whirlwind that Bush was talking about, what the aftermath looks like. That's what it looks like.
I wonder how much depleted uranium is just going to be scattered across there.
You know what? Even when I was in the military, they were using Sabo rounds, which are depleted uranium rounds.
That's so good for you.
Listen, that stuff, it was so bad. You know, when it hit a vehicle and exploded, this stuff is laying around all over the battlefield. They don't tell the soldiers about this when they're going and doing body counts and looking at all the damage that they've caused. It's dastardly to take leftover nuclear waste, put it in a missile, and scatter it all over the battlefield. And
think about what they do with the vaccines, Gerald. They put aluminum and mercury in it and say, "Oh, your baby needs 4 injections, and it's good for your baby."
Yeah,
if they start coughing, it's no big deal.
I'll tell you some other
weapons everywhere.
Advanced technology things that they don't tell you about. Did you know that the laser rangefinder inside an M1 tank is so powerful that there were only 2 bases in the United States that allowed those to operate that were laser safe? Okay. If you take that laser and you designate a target who has optics that's looking at you thousands of yards away, guess what? You burn the retina right out of their eye. You think they're not using that as a weapon all over the battlefield? You damn straight they are. Okay? Everything that can cause damage and destruction that you can even conceive of in every wavelength and every frequency is being used against humans.
Who knows what they're doing with the chemtrails? Now, that's where you really want to wonder if they're putting nanoparticulates out there to get lodged into people, and they can activate it via frequency with cell phone towers and certain satellites.
Well, I would assume they are, Rex. I mean, I don't think
I have a document to show. And I'm not going to tell you who gave it to me, that 73% of Americans have already been infected with nanites.
Yes.
It's threading chemtrails for exactly that purpose. Imagine you go through an airport scanner and they decide to have a frequency that coincides with whatever those nanites get activated and whatever they're going to do with them in your body.
Well, I mean, let's just be
smart
honest.
meters, smart TV.
Last week, I mean, Rex. I mean, the average person in America is obese. They have no energy management. They have no ability to be consciously aware, to be aligned, to receive whatever. They're just going through life, worried about their next meal, hoping they don't get fired from their job.
Doctor will give me a drug. I can eat all I want.
Exactly. Not even the prescription meds they're on. Right. So it's like, when you start thinking of it from a human existence standpoint in that capacity, the reality is that, these people are being tuned and they are being controlled and they are breathing nanites and they are literally sucking up the fumes from whatever the God knows they're spraying in the atmosphere. So, I mean, it's like you guys said a little while ago.
Don't worry, though. The government loves you.
It's a miracle that we are all here convened having this conversation and not controlled and not like completely unaware. I mean, right? I mean, we still believe that 90% of people have no concept or idea.
Isn't that amazing that all this is going on with most people just totally unaware of it, and they maybe they know a little bit that it's going on, but they want to choose to remain ignorant because it's difficult to deal with. Now, you guys touched on some dark stuff there. Mm-hmm. I think that there is all these things going on to suppress our conscious awakening and try to cull the population and sicken us. All those things are going on, while at the same time this whole other side is trying to wake us up as fast as possible to realize all these things. So, you know, as much as there is this dark side that's maybe losing its control over us as we change over to the age of Aquarius in a new house, I think that's why we're seeing all this happen. We're seeing them throw all the cards on the table because they're losing. They're about to get judgment, and they're losing control of this place. So if we can get through this and educate as many people as we can, there is a new change of hierarchy coming, I really believe. And you can see it with how everything's going.
I wouldn't view it so much as a losing of control. I think their term limits are tied to the zodiacal house. And when it comes time to change, there's a window of time when you have to count up everybody that's on your team and everybody that's on the other team. It's a culling. It's like a what is it? A census. It's like a census bureau reading where you got to go out and do a survey now, and everybody that's on the team that's going to be recycled and wants to live in fear is good with being a slave. You got to get all those over into this corral over here, right? Because they're good slaves. They're going to do what you want, and we're going to perpetuate those. All these ones over here that are waking up and wanting sovereignty and freedom and all these things from God. We got to do. And guess what? If you're a vegan, you're a dissident. You're a terrorist. Anything that you've said on this program tonight, guess what? You're all dissidents.
You're going to hell.
Well, not only that,
meat, son.
Well, not only that, if they have their opportunity for you, and there is chaos, and they get the opportunity to go, you over here, you over here. Listen, look what's happening in Turkey. They just arrested 50,000 people. 50,000 people that were dissidents, right?
From the coup?
Yeah. And it's not over yet.
No.
While the world stands by watching them pile these people handcuffed together, naked as bodies into a room while they're torturing them. And they're going to make them all go away, but they're going to make a big example out of them before that happens. Well, this is the
That'll never happen here, will it? Ever?
Oh, no, we'll never have a secret facility in Chicago where people against habeas corpus have been taken there and disappeared over and over and over.
Doesn't exist.
No.
Right.
You know, they got facilities like this all over the world.
Of course.
It's not just Gitmo, okay? These places where you can go where there's no law and order, and you can set up a facility and hold people that are dissidents or not, or that are dangerous to your possible scheme coming apart. They're being held all over the world. Okay.
You don't exist any longer. You're gone.
Yeah. And yeah.
All right, let's we've been on for close to, I don't know, about 75 minutes, I think 76 minutes. So there's a couple more questions, and then I want, because we're going to obviously do this as much as we can week to week. I want all of us to kind of give our opinion of where we're going to be 6 months to a year from now. So just two more cool questions. These are from Marty. I promise we try to get them tackled. They're really good, Gerald. He says, in the Emerald Tablets, Thoth refers to the light and the dark repeatedly. Is he talking about actual photons?
I don't think so. I think the illusion, at one point when he's just talking about distinguishing energy and matter,
Right.
It's possible. But what he's talking about there are two actual forces of light and dark that have been battling all through the galaxy, all through the universe. It's like Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever since they came to planet Earth, they said the beings that were here were enslaved. Okay.
Right.
Duality.
So the Gnostics call them the Archons, right? We know that. The Gnosticoi calls them the Archons. Obviously, Thoth
Got a copy of the Nag Hammadi right next to us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. And then, Thoth calls them the Dark Brotherhood, right? The reptilians, the Orion complex, whatever they are. So we know that we have light and the dark. They've been fighting for centuries. So the next question he asked, and it's perfect, Sieg, is what would be the best way to hack for us, the consciously aware? What is the best way to hack or reprogram the simulator for our conscious benefit?
Can I take that, Gerald? Or
go for it, man. It's you.
I think that we have these steps that we have to take, or we're just never going to be able to break out of this this kind of hold that's on our consciousness. We have to follow these steps of becoming healthy. This antenna that we are, that can tune in. If we're not able to even function on a level where we can tune into the right vibrational frequency to even hear this, it's going to be impossible. So that's how I see being asleep and waking up. It's a conscious shift that you make once you become aware, and you start developing more awareness on that through both your health, your body, and then you.
Matt, hold on, Gerald. Let me put Matt on the spot real quick because I love you, and your answer. I know your answer will be brilliant. So why are you positive then? If we know, wait, before you answer, if we know that 95% are fucking clueless and asleep and completely out of tune and can't sense anything, why are you hopeful?
Me?
Yep, you.
I'm hopeful
Donkey?
because I look in baby steps. I see everyone around me, to all the people that that I've followed throughout my life, and I see the change that's even been made in their lifetime. I see this all as a progression that's occurring, and every generation is getting better and better, and we're getting more and more freedom of information, and it's an escalation of acceleration. And if you look at the fact that we've been in the dark days for the last couple hundred years at least, and we've made all that progression, then what are the light days going to be like?
So the last question.
Wait, I get to do a piece of that. Hold on.
No, hold on though. It goes right into you because
Why
next question, hold on. The next question is.
I don't want to do the next question. I want to finish with Timothy Leary.
No.
He said, drop out, turn off, tune in, and turn on. And actually, most of us have done many of those steps. And I think that's a lot of the explanation why we're having this conversation. I don't own a TV. I don't watch TV. Neither do you.
Exactly.
You don't.
So those are the steps I was talking about.
Right.
Health, and then have an awareness of what you're ingesting with information, and having your awareness of your world.
So that's what I was going to say to you guys. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have phrased it as a question, but it goes right into this. Is the internet the nerve ganglia for all of us?
Absolutely. It's the only reason we're even doing this. If the internet was not invented, we would have been. I don't know. We would even be still here now.
Actually, the internet is kind of like a big neural network in that if you were to monitor it, you can kind of see the consensus of what humans are doing in various patterns and trends. And in AI, they use the data that comes from the internet exactly that way. As a matter of fact, when I was at this company in 1989, one of the things that we were looking to do was write an intelligent agent, a software agent that would go do your various bidding on the internet for you. Go arrange your travel, go find this news for you, and all those kind of things. So the idea that they're using data from the internet and watching all of us as entities and putting together very big pictures in terms of there's rebellion over in this part of the world, and there's complete slavery over here. This is working really good. They're comparing and contrasting all this data. So I think the internet is like a big brain, but at the same time, it's the thing that's leveled the playing field across multiple time zones, across language barriers. I think it was intended for us it's part of the lifting of the veil before it gets shut down so that we get access to everything that we need. So if you choose to wake up, you get to. But
let me jump in real quick, though, if I can. I just want to add to what you're saying. Let's look at the other side of that, because the internet has made, literally, like you said, this system that makes it very easy to know what's going on the other side of the world, because you can tell what somebody's looking up, if they're worried about something, if they're researching something, what they saw, where they're going, what they like to eat. And if you add all that information into an AI system, plus these supercomputers that can calculate quadrillions of floating seconds per, quadrillions of points per second, what it does is it allows them to use that against us. And I think you just made that comment about how you don't think we'd be here if we didn't have the internet. I certainly don't want to feel that way. I go back in the 80s. I mean, I'm 38, so I was born in 77. But if I think about the 80s, it was awesome. It was great because I didn't have to worry about what was on the internet per se. And I don't want to,
dude. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I love rock and roll.
No, I definitely agree with that.
The big hair, brother. The big hair.
I guess I meant that I'm in the perspective of not that we needed the internet to be happy, but in the terms of our time of ignorance is running out, whereas if we didn't have the internet, we would be totally unaware of our control of.
I totally agree. I think from an information standpoint, it caused us to lift the veil. It's a peek behind the curtain, if you will.
Even though it may be the very purpose behind it, on the dualistic aspect, maybe Rex is totally right, where the idea of allowing it is like, okay, we can monitor every human being on Earth. We can totally control what they're thinking, what they're receiving, and maybe it became out of control. Maybe it
They're in
actually.
every one of our heads, literally. Every single one of us that uses the internet. Oh, I don't watch TV. Okay. Do you get on the computer? What do you do on the computer? Everything, just your cell phone alone, by where you go, they can track you and your future predictions by a 93% chance of what you're going to do the next day, just because of your cell phone and where you take it. Imagine combined with everything else. And the internet, as great as it is, I love the internet. It can also be used against you. Now think about this. If they want to influence you in a certain way, you look something up on the internet, what comes up? Well, that's going to be dependent on your behavior, your patterns on the internet, and also what they want you to see. So you might be looking something up on the internet and it could be true, but the truth that they're giving you is a piece of the puzzle that isn't really important. And when I say maybe it's somebody that's following your every move, because you know what you're talking about. You're exposing the agenda. You're outspoken like yourself. You write books. And Gerald, you're absolutely at the cutting edge. And what you've got going on is incredible, Jay. I mean, all you guys are definitely being the change that you want to see, and I certainly applaud you for that. So your cell phones, look at your cell phone. If you've got an Android phone, you can pull up your IP address. You can punch that into whois.se on the internet. That'll tell you where your phone is getting routed through. And my phone gets routed through the Department of Defense in Columbus, Ohio. Now, and it has for years. And that's cool. I mean, great. Hello, guys. I mean, that's wonderful. I don't know why I would be.
Guys, what the fuck?
Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, you know what, though? The three-letter agencies are only trying to mimic the capabilities of those who are running the simulator. Right. They don't need you to have a cell phone. You are the transmitter. You're the meat modem. Right. Every thought you've ever had, everything you've ever seen, every sensation you've ever experienced has been recorded by them.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You are their biological agent. You don't need to be on the internet. You don't need to have a phone. You don't need to have a TV. All you got to do is exist in that body on this planet. And
all they have to do is probably just measure what your vibrational frequency is.
So,
map you out.
In the occult world, they call it the Akashic Records. If you study mysticism, you can tap into it yourself. You don't need to be an Anunnaki. You don't need to be a reptilian shapeshifter. If you want to tap into it, you can do it. You can talk to people that study remote viewing and learning how to take their body out of body experience, out of the physical body. I myself, I don't talk about this often, but I've had an out-of-body experience. I wasn't even trying to. And I guess that was the pinnacle for me, you guys. What really made me want to learn more was when I left my body trying to go to sleep, and it freaked me out so bad, I made myself wake back up. And then as I started to fall back asleep, I did it again. So I woke myself back up. It freaked me out, and it really changed. That point was a pivotal point for me, you guys.
Tell me about that, how that affected your thoughts about the afterlife, because they did the same thing. I had them when I was 17.
Multiple
better than sex, man, and sex is awesome. You know what I mean? There's the only thing that I could think of.
Are you afraid to die now that you've had that experience, knowing you go on eternally?
No comment. I don't want to comment on that. I'm not.
I have to say that
the Borg will take it and assimilate me with it.
That was the effect having an out-of-body experience had on me. Is I realized I could exist outside this body. I had my intellect and my consciousness. I didn't need this meat host to continue. That was the most amazing thing to me. I thought everybody knew that when I was 17 or 18 years old. They didn't know that. I've known that my whole life.
No, that's why the physical body is why they obsess about looks and everything. It's always about the physical. That's all it ever is.
It's like Toll says, it's the ego mind.
Yeah. Well, that's what they want you to believe, you know. Yeah. If you find out that you're an avatar, you're an eternal spirit, and this is just a materialistic experience for you to learn your lessons, it changes the whole game.
Yeah, you stop focusing all your time on it.
Yeah.
You guys ever wonder, though? You ever wonder after you leave this physical body and you go into the spirit world, you ever wonder what's going to meet you there?
Well, I mean, I've done DMT twice in my life, and I've met what's there. So I'm not afraid. I can tell you that. I am not afraid.
I've only had good experience.
What is it, Jay?
I'm sorry?
What is it?
I mean, I can't really comprehend it from a physical experience. It's definitely, I would say, a conscious awareness of, I wouldn't classify them as beings, but clearly something of a higher purpose and a higher mission than me as a sapiens, in my opinion. You know, and I've done DMT twice. I've not done ayahuasca. That's coming. But definitely, there's definitely a bigger and better purpose. I wanted to add something though to what Rex said, and then I want all of us to say where our predictions for the next 6 to 12 months, and then we'll move on to next week. But It's a statistical fact that both Facebook and Google are owned by the CIA at various levels. It's a statistical fact. You can root source this. You can find it. It's on. You can Google it. There's been people that have all the multinational corporations that these goddamn companies.
Just look it up on Google, man. It's
search for it, right?
The CIA is involved in both. So it goes back to what Rex said. And obviously the Akashic Records and what Gerald says, that they don't need any of that. But the reality is that there is definitely a subversion with just information dissemination, for sure.
I want to say one more point on that. Guess what I've experienced in this kind of crazy simulator? I got to the place where I realized that when they know that you know that they know, okay, you're an agent that's now awake in the simulator.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? And there's been experiences I've had where I realized that they knew that I was on their channel, and they knew that I knew that I was on their channel, listening, understanding, getting the Akashic record, that kind of thing. And at one point I finally realized, you know, when do you stop playing the game that you're not being watched, and you realize that you're either going to cooperate and do something good for humanity, or you're going to continue playing like you can hide from Santa Claus kind of thing. Okay.
Well, we're all
it makes you responsible for your mission when you realize that everything you do is seen and watched. Sign up for it and hit a home run. Okay. Because listen, there are light forces that will help you once you start getting to that place. It's not only just about watching you to destroy you. They're looking for heroes to initiate, to win.
And then that's where the assistance comes in. It's not like they're assisting. Right. They're not just going blanket around the world. They're going for those who are on the path, and then they assist them on the path.
This is about seeking and finding, and this is the golden thread through all time for alchemy.
That's very profound, Gerald, because just like we said today, Matt, in the Facebook group, you know, there's cosmic energies radiating through the universe right now. Those of us who are most aware, which Thoth talks about in the tablets, are much more susceptible to those frequencies. And you have to combat them by changing your state. And how do you change your state? You go into nature. You become mindful of nature. You get in there and you go into the quiet. You meditate, whatever you do, or you create, which is what Gerald is saying. You create. You're not a fucking observer. You're a participant. You take advantage of helping other people, service to others. That's what you do. Those are the two things. That's how you get out of the negative mindset. When you find your mission, your true mission, it will always be in service to humanity. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, honestly, it's this path. One of the most important things you can possibly develop is compassion. Compassion for the fellow person around you. Because if you're like on this hero journey of truth and you have no compassion for others, then what are you doing it for? Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it to become famous? Or are you doing it to help others? And that's, at the end of the day, that's what matters the most.
Especially as it relates to the least of these.
Well, you know what? One question we didn't answer.
And I want to finish that because Rex has one and I had one too. He knows what I'm talking about. And that changes you permanently, doesn't it, Rex? When you have a child who has an issue like that. Right? It changes your heart.
100%, man. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I won't go into the details, but I know, having been in communication with Rex, that he's gone through very similar things with his kid, some of his kids that I have. And it really does, you know, force you to decide what's important. And what's important is doing what you would do for the least of these is representative of what you do for all of humanity. Because if you're not willing to do it for them, you're not going to do it for anyone else.
Exactly. That's well said.
One point we didn't talk about tonight that I want to get to, and we'll talk next Wednesday about it, and then everybody's going to give their summary right now to close out. But I want to talk about the pursuit of money. I think it's a fascinating topic. I think it's underdeveloped. And, you know, the whole money magic system, the Babylonian money magic system, I want to talk about that, but we'll save it for next week because it's a fascinating topic. So, Matt, you go first. What's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months?
It's such a complicated thing because, like Rex knows, how many have come on, and Gerald knows how many have come on and are talking about, and you know, that Nibiru is going to like cause a pole shift with all these violent ocean waves. That's why the military is building all these underground bunkers and threatening. And
I can see it, man. It's in the sky. I can see it.
that's this one outcome. That's this one outcome that I don't see happening, because I think that there's so much at stake right now for this change of the house system into the Aquarius change with Enki and Thoth, and everywhere we've gone and all the things that have led us this far. I really see a very positive future, but it's going to come out of chaos. It's not going to be a smooth sailing ride, but I don't see a destruction thing where billions die or anything. I don't think we're going to go down that road, and I'm not going to allow that aspect of reality into mine. So, I remain positive.
That's awesome. So I'm putting you on the spot, though. Are we seeing major societal change in 12 months or not?
Oh, huge. I think within the next 2 years, we're going to see a complete change.
You're saying 24 months. You're not saying 12 months. You're saying 24 months. Massive.
Well, within the next year, we're going to see probably a complete change of both monetary and political and religious segments of our entire society. I think we're going to see collapses of them. Now, the question is, will there be violence? Is humanity going to turn to total violence? And I believe that we've grown up a lot since those days, and we've consciously evolved to the point where even though there will be violence, overall people are going to choose against violence, and they'll choose a more peaceful path, I hope. Well
said. Rex, you're up, man. I'm putting you on the spot. I already know you're going to say Hillary Clinton, business as usual.
I'm going to say business as usual. There are going to continue to be false flags or events that create more bills and regulations to take away people's freedoms and liberties. In my opinion, yes. Is it going to be business as usual? Are the corporations going to continue to put poison in the food? Yes. Are they continue to label it as natural ingredients? Yes. Are we going to continue to go through this slow boil process? Yes, in my opinion. But I don't see there being a giant cataclysm or martial law on a country scale. Now, here's why. Let's go back for a second and think about when the Boston Marathon bombers, from their pressure bombs that they supposedly had. I mean, it just seriously, okay. If you watch the footage that they released, it looked like smoke bombs to me. And then when CNN, you remember when CNN comes out and says, oh, 130 people had their limbs blown off, and okay, well, where's the hospital records? 130 people had their limbs blown off from a couple of pressure cookers? Okay, yeah, if you can believe that, then I'll tell you what, you should really come check out this timeshare presentation. The maintenance fee is only $2,500 a year. It's a good deal, though. You get a week of vacation out of it. It's insane what people believe that they see it on TV. And the funny thing is, if you go back to that, you watch the Family Guy episode where Peter plows down a whole bunch of people in the Boston Marathon, and you see their limbs flying all over the place. People come out on record saying that they talked to people at the beginning of the marathon, say, okay, you're going to hear explosions. Don't worry, it's just a drill. Then you see pictures of the guy being pushed in a wheelchair with his leg blown off, supposedly. Where's the true blood? The guy is totally coherent. You can see that it looks like makeup on his face to make it look like his cheeks are sucked in. And then you take that picture, and it looks just like this guy that had his legs blown off in Iraq back in 2003. Oh, but it was on the Communist News Network, so I believe it. It's got to be true. See? It's right there, you guys. Look. It just blows my mind. Welcome to the USA.
So hold on.
Timeshare presentation. It's a good deal. I'm telling you.
I'm going to not let you off. So hold on. I want to ask one question. So business as usual, continual false flags. Are we going to have a false flag bigger than 9/11?
And here at home, no. In Europe, possibly. I think there's going to be some stuff go down in Europe. Out here, I'm not sensing it.
They can't pull it off anymore. There's too much technology and too much awareness.
Well, they can pull it off, and people will still be like, yeah. I mean, I know that they made a GoFundMe page a week before this event happened, but that doesn't it's just it's real.
Gerald, your opinion.
They're terrorists. They're ISIS. They're gonna blow us up.
I want to start by saying,
take away my rights, please. Take my guns. I can't have them anymore. ISIS might get me. Please vaccinate my baby. Please give it 50 shots of thimerosal. Please, I'm begging you.
I'll take your AR-15.
It needs it.
Hey, I think we're conscious co-creators, and we have a lot to do with changing the state of the world, and based on what we're manifesting as a species. So if we're caught up in this complete fear state that they're trying to put us in, I think it's intentional, and if we could overcome that, we might be able to have a chance to fight back. The problem is they're pulling our chain at a primitive level that has to do with our design constructs that need territory, identity, and stimulus. And they're playing with all three of those to cause us to war against each other and all this. So,
exactly.
but we have a choice, but I don't see us making the right choice. Like Jay said, I see 95% of the people still not even wanting to be responsible. So, but listen, I don't think that's been any different all through the zodiacal houses, the changes. I think there's always a small group of people on this slave planet that decide that they don't want to be slaves anymore, and there's a window of opportunity that they're given to see behind the veil. And listen, when you see things and you're exposed to information, it changes you. Right. It changes the nature of it changes the nature of your reality. So you could be living a reality that's saintly right next to somebody who's living a reality that's just absolutely torture because of the difference in the distinction that you've made in what you're going to focus on in your path, right?
The associations of
you can have heaven and hell existing at the same time. And I think heaven and hell have always existed at the same time, creation and destruction. So that being said, I'm looking at the world now as we come to the end of the zodiacal house. And I believe that at the end of the zodiacal houses, there's chaos as the power vacuum is created and the new forces that are planning to take over. And it's never a smooth handoff, it doesn't seem. It's bloody. You got to tear this artifact down, and all these people that were doing this, they all have to go away because they're not part of the new construct or whatever. I see a lot of that going on right now.
So my opinion is, I agree. I still go back to Albert Pike. I still go back.
I wanted to finish with that though.
You believe that letter? Do you guys believe that 3 World War letter that he?
Absolutely.
I don't know about believing it. But what you can do is go back in history and go, did history match with what he said in 1871?
Yes.
Sure as hell did. So it looks like
exactly.
It looks like it was a battle. Okay. Yeah, it looks like a battle plan to me. Okay.
Oh, of course it does. If it's legit, I mean, the first 2 wars he hits spot on, and then when he talks about the 3rd World War, he's spot on there as far as what they're.
Well, listen, look at the state of the world right now. So I would say it's exactly set up to do what he predicted. And listen. If you step back and realize what Mauro Bellino just said, the Abrahamic religions are a complete lie. So whatever this new world force is that's coming in this new zodiacal house, if from their perspective, all that's got to go away.
Yeah.
And I see that now. I didn't see that before because I was caught up all in it. But now if you look at it and go, Albert Pike said it's going to go away. Well, listen, it shouldn't be there in the first place.
Right.
So
hey,
I believe Thoth told us correctly in Emerald Tablet 12 that we are going to go right to the point where there is going to be a nuclear war. We're already poised for it to happen. The U.S. is pushing for it irrationally, and they're pushing the right critter that's going to give it to them, which is the Russian bear.
Go ahead, Rex.
I can't understand why they want to do that, but I think it's being pushed to exactly the place that the powers in the simulator want it to happen as part of our edification. And I think it's going to happen, and then we're going to go into a different realm. Now, I think the people that are part of the 5%, I don't think they're part of the go-forward plan of the enslavement to stay on this planet. They're graduating. Take me, I'm going to go. This is graduation, okay? That's how I see it. So if you want to choose to have an avatar body and come back here and help the slaves get to where you all have gotten, you can do that, I think. Or you can go on to something much higher and deal with a non-localized reality where your energy that can have a body or not.
You coming back, Jerry, or are you going to move on somewhere else?
That's a very good question. You know what? After listening to the Alien Roswell interview that talked about how unstable this planet was and that it's just a prison simulator, I don't know. I don't know why I should come back. I think I've done enough in this one to try to get the people.
Go ahead, Rex. I know you're going to say something.
I don't know if I would or not. It's a good question.
You know, I think where I was going with that, I don't even remember really what we were talking about. So as far as the question I was going to ask, so it's no big deal. It wasn't that important.
Well, I mean, so I agree with I'm with Gerald. Albert Pike, you know.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So you were talking about Albert Pike, and you know he's obviously a very infamous individual. He's actually got a 32nd degree temple downtown San Antonio, which I stumbled across one day, which is real weird, the synchronicities with that. But, you know, you look at also very interesting characters like Aleister Crowley. And when he wrote, he supposedly he did some automatic writing with the Book of the Law. And then he also wrote a book called the Book of Thoth. And these deities that he supposedly summons up, I mean, they're very dark, you know, I mean, it's a real dark entity, but the age of Aquarius is what he often talked about as being this age where people wake up and knowledge is there. And he called himself the wickedest man in the world, that he also called himself the prophet of the new age. And then so you would look at the Abrahamic religions, and if you say, okay, well, he called himself the most wicked man in the world, he must have been a very evil individual. And if you study up on him, I mean, he gets some dark stuff. I mean, very dark from what I've read, but it's just interesting the stuff he writes about. So are you guys familiar with Aleister Crowley? And Gerald, you are too? Okay.
All of it.
What do you think about that stuff, the automatic writing that he did?
Well, I mean, if I can speak for you real quick, Gerald.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I definitely want to give my opinion too before we close the show out. But Crowley is a fascinating character. I would tell you guys all to go to Wikipedia and read his freaking life story. It reads like out of a science fiction novel. It's almost like he was Thoth or some other being like Thoth, also incarnated. But it's all amazing stuff, Rex. I go beyond Crowley and I look at Jack Parsons and Ron Hubbard and the shit that they did, picking up from Crowley. And that's some dark occult shit right there. That's about all I can say. But they did some crazy stuff. But so my opinion is Albert Pike, if he is wrong or he isn't wrong, a lot of his information is so clear. And like I said, it came out to be so close. The only thing I will say that could prevent that from happening is if there are these light beings, these light forces, wherever they come from, it seems like they want to disarm nuclear weapons.
Agreed. I agree with that.
It seems like we would have already had a nuclear proliferation.
Agreed.
I agree
at some point if it wasn't for these light beings. So I still
agree about light beings, but I agree there's something there.
But right. I still agree. I still agree with Gerald, though, from a standpoint of I don't believe that what is to come is positive. I believe there are not enough aware people to make a manifestation of positivity. So whatever's coming, a lot of people are going to be left behind.
Maybe that's why we're doing this, because we gotta turn the table a little bit.
Well, I think
the playing field.
Well, I think what's coming, if you like the idea of being part of a kingship, listen, I'm actually not interested in having a king in any way, shape, or form. Okay, I'm not interested. So the idea of a new kingship coming to the earth and it's going to last 1,000 years, have fun with that, because I'm not interested. I'm not participating if that's what's going on.
You will assimilate.
No, I'll live free or I'll die.
Right.
That's what I'll
Bingo.
That's what I'll do. And I don't care if it's somebody coming on my porch and telling me, okay, it's time to go to the FEMA camp. Listen, I will never make it to a FEMA camp. Okay?
No,
I will go down fighting at the very first point where my sovereignty and my right to life, liberty, and freedom is challenged. It's going to happen right there. There won't be any mollycoddling. I'm telling you right now. So,
hey, what's that song by Bon Jovi?
yeah.
No.
And you know,
Going down in a blaze of glory.
You know, if everybody was willing to live like that and say no to the orders that are being given to them to do illegal and immoral things, this wouldn't be going on. It wouldn't be going on. So,
yeah.
So I do see that the monetary system, the entire constructs are going to have to change. And if we end up with a system where everybody is seeking the goal, as was described in Atlantis, to evolve our consciousness and get closer to the source, which was what Thoth says is the goal,
right.
And I'm down with that. But I don't want to do it being a conscript to anybody at all. Ever again.
With that said, anybody with any final thoughts, or we just get excited about next week's show because we got this is fascinating discussion, guys.
Let's just keep continuing it on. I think we're really digging into some incredibly important topics and connections that we need to make.
Okay, so I'll just finish. I'll just say, listen, for everybody that's going to watch
Be
this.
the change you want to see.
I was just going to say
Absolutely. That's a very good way of saying it.
Well said, Rex. I mean, so again, please, as this show carries on and goes forth, and we've added another brilliant, compadre to our little group here, please send us your questions. We've got a Facebook group that we've created now. I mean, obviously, You know, Rex has a massive following. Jerry has a massive following. Please send us your questions. You know, we'll do our best to answer them every single week. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're trying to bring truth to the masses, guys.
Jay, why don't you go ahead and say the name of that Facebook group so people have it?
It's Coders, CODERS for Truth.
Is it for or of? Because I entered for today and I had a blink breakage and everybody. Let's double check that. It's either
It's
for or
Coders
of.
for. It's Coders for. I'm looking at it right now. Coders for Truth.
Okay.
Yep, Coders for Truth. So please, you know, send us a Facebook request or just, you know, try to get into the group, and we're going to build the group up as fast as we can.
Thanks. It's been really great being here. I'm glad we can all do this right now in this
Rex,
time.
thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, dude. We really appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And check out leakproject.com, folks.
Absolutely.
And GeraldClark77.com.
Yeah, and my YouTube channel is Gerald Clark, but if you search for Gerald Clark on there, you should find a lot of stuff on me. There's one other guy named Gerald Clark that comes up on YouTube, and he's a musician. Kind of looks like me a little bit. I actually want to meet him. So
You can find me on I have the Illusion of Us Facebook page, as well as I have a YouTube channel where I have some audio readings and some various things like that too.
no.
Yep.
And for those of you that haven't read either Matt's book or Jay's book, these guys are both really great authors. Support them. They're really trying to help humanity and putting it out there for you. So
Yeah, thank you, guys. And listen,
Thank you.
you can have my book for guys. You guys can download the PDF for free. It's trtrevolution.com/PDF. Please read it. It's, you know, it's a message for everybody, men and women.
no. And for those people that don't know, Jay is like a walking repository of biological knowledge.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. brother.
I can tell because I've read a lot of books and I can tell you've really dug in hard.
He's mastered the health of a human body, basically.
Mm-hmm. So
Thanks, guys. Well, I mean, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much again, Rex, for coming on. Matthew, you guys, I love you guys, man. This is fucking amazing, dude. I want to keep this going every week for sure.
okay, let's do it. And I'm out. So be good, guys, and let's keep moving the ball down the field. Okay.
For sure.
That was a great discussion. I really liked that one a lot.
Awesome. Okay.